Yo, what's good, YouTube, man? It's Gary with another Fan TV back at you on the video. Like the content of this video, go and smash that like button. Like the content of this channel, go and subscribe, man. Look, so Ravens training camp day 6. We're gonna get into it, man. Injury report, offense, defense. Talk about the kicking battle as well, right? Like we usually do. All right, so now today had one big thing that kind of cast a shadow over everything, and we'll talk about that primarily in this video. All right, so injury report. Not practicing. Keith Kirkwood, Jalen Armour-Davis, who we said got hurt yesterday, right? And then Bilal Kone, who got hurt a couple days ago, right? Sometime really last week at this point, okay? Back to practice, Jair Alexander, Rashad Bateman, right? Talking to y'all, listening to y'all comments, right? Y'all make me feel a lot better about the whole knee joint situation with Jair Alexander. So hopefully he's good now, right? Standard procedure, cool, right? Now, unfortunately, there was a practice injury today to a very, very important player to the Ravens organization, and that's Isaiah Likely. Okay, Isaiah Likely was carted off the field at the end of practice with an ankle injury. All right, now they're saying that Harbaugh has already said that he might have just rolled his ankle, but he is like he's going to be out. He's going to be out a few weeks, right? So it's like good and bad news, right? Because the good news is it could have been a lot worse when you hear carted off the field, lower leg injury, right? It could be a lot worse. Bad news, obviously, is that it's going to miss a few weeks, right? So we don't want to speculate about injuries, right? But I mean, we're going to talk about it, okay? I mean, the best of all the worst outcomes is a high ankle sprain, right? That's if it goes the way that Harbaugh says it might go. It's not like it's going to be a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out for a little bit, right? You know what I mean? So that's the best of the worst possible scenario. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. That's what they say. He's getting an MRI. Now, no more then. So that's what we're waiting on, all right? And the other thing about Isaiah Likely, that's why it's kind of been a day of highs and lows for him, right? Because there's been rumors that him and the Ravens have agreed to a contract today. Like, there's just rumors, insiders, things like that, Isaiah Likely has agreed to a new deal with the Ravens, right? That the structure of the contract was really helped by the fact that Jake Ferguson got paid, right? And that kind of laid the groundwork for Isaiah Likely to have a contract where it was going to be in a ballpark, I believe, above $13 million a year on his new deal. So now you get the news that, or the rumors, right? It's all rumors, right? Nothing to be confirmed by the Ravens or anything like that. It's all rumors that he goes out, signs a contract with the team, they strike up a deal, and then on the practice on the very same day, he gets hurt. So very, very unfortunate timing, right? Either way it goes, whether his contract is, whether that's a real thing or not, very, very unfortunate, right? So hopefully Isaiah Likely is okay, and hopefully it is just that couple of weeks that John Harbaugh said, right? That he'll be out, but we'll know more tomorrow, right? So it is what it is right now. Okay. Now for the offensive side of the ball, right? They said that D Hop made another great catch today, but it was out of bounds. So once again, it's on Nate Wiggins. So now we got catches in back-to-back days on D Hop that did not count. One was out of bounds, and the other one was offensive pass interference. But him and Lamar Jackson building the connection, that's the important part to really realize and focus in on, is that, Lamar Jackson has a guy that one-on-one coverage, he feels really good about giving him a shot to go get the football, and D-Hop is going and getting the football, right? So to me, that's a really, really big deal. It's an aspect of the Ravens offense that has been missing, right? You have guys that create great separation, Bateman, Zay, they get open, right? That's what you want your wide receiver to do, is get open. But you also would like to have a wide receiver that can go up and get a jump ball, right? We've seen that from like I mentioned them yesterday. I mentioned them again, Anquan Bolden, back in the day, right? So now the Ravens have that in their tight ends, Isaiah Likely, when he comes back healthy, and Mark Andrews. But if you get the more guys that can give your quarterback that bailout option, the better, right? All right, Tez Walker, another strong practice. So he is pretty much stringing days together this entire week and a half of training camp, right? I mean, you can almost say that every single day of training camp there has been a Tez Walker looks good report, right? So this is a guy that, if he gets the opportunity, we are really looking at a breakout candidate, right? You know what I mean? And I'm here for it, right? He has the size, the speed, and if you put on a little bit more weight, he can have the strength as well, right? So Tez Walker is a guy that he has all the makings to be a good NFL wide receiver, right? So it's just about him putting it all together, right? And can he do that? And I think he can, right? And if this beginning process of training camp is anything to go by, he will eventually put it all together and be a very, very important receiver for the Ravens, right? So we'll see, right? All right, Mark Andrews was once again very good day, very involved, right? Brian Wacker, one of the I forgot what column he writes for, but he's a Ravens reporter. He said that Mark Andrews looking like regular season Mark Andrews, right? So that means he's catching everything, getting open, running good routes, and that's what the Ravens need, right? So Mark Andrews is a guy that he's going to keep doing. He's going to keep doing this thing. If Mark Andrews could raise his level of play in the playoffs, we wouldn't talk about him how we talked about him this past offseason, right? We would be like, we need to keep Mark Andrews, right? We need to have him and Likely together. Unfortunately, that playoff loss, left a bad taste in everybody's mouth, right? But Andrews is all-time great Raven. Still a really, really good player. I think he's going to add a lot to the team this year, like he always does. Like I don't expect really any drop off from Mark Andrews, right? As long as he's healthy, I expect him to be a really, really good player and a reliable player, right? Now we need that reliability to transfer into the playoffs, right? That's the last step, really. Now on the flip side for offense, right? They said that the red zone has not been good, right? And that's been a constant theme, I would say, of this last week and a half. It's the beginning of a week and a half of training camp. That the red zone offense has not really been that good for the Ravens, right? Now we know in the red zone is tough for the score, right? That's when the defense can really condense the field, lock up, everything is tighter, the windows are smaller, everything like that. So they've struggled a little bit. Now I don't think that's completely surprising. But this is something to keep an eye on. If we keep hearing about this, in week 3, week 4 training camp, then it's going to time to be worried about it. Like, okay, what are the Ravens doing in the red zone that's not working, or is this defense really that good in the red zone? It could go. It's one of those things that could go either way. But from the offensive perspective, you want to start hearing about the Ravens are scoring red zone touchdowns. You want to start hearing that and seeing that. Okay. And so that's pretty much it for the offense. For the defense, they didn't have too much there. I didn't see too much put out there. But they said that Roquan Smith was very, very active, blowing up multiple plays in the backfield, and he was talking to the offensive players, right? Chirping at them, right? So Roquan Smith is the leader of the defense. He's going to give those pregame speeches. He's going to give those halftime speeches. He's going to give those postgame speeches, whatever you want to say. He is the voice of the Ravens defense, right? And too many times last year, we felt like the voice of the Ravens defense was not also being that dynamic linebacker on the field, right? He was just being the voice. But if Roquan Smith can go back to being that dynamic player on the field and being the voice of the Ravens locker room, I'm good with it, right? So, Roquan has had now multiple days where people are saying that he looks fast, he looks like he's fine around the field. And that's the Roquan Smith that we knew when we first got him in 2023 and, back when he was with the Bears, right? A very athletic linebacker that was fine all over the field. Last year, he looked a step slow. He just did, right? We got it. I can be fair and admit that, right? But if he's back up to speed, the Ravens are going to have a chance to really, really good defense throughout the entire season and not just one half of the season. All right, then lastly, kicking competition. John Horlin went 5 or 6 today. They didn't mention anything about Tyler Lue. Maybe he didn't kick today. But John Horlin's sole miss, his only miss came from 51 yards, right? So everything he made, I think his longest was 48 that he made, and the one miss was from 51, right? So, kicking competition is still going on. John Horlin's putting himself in a good spot, right, where it's at least a competition, right? Tyler Lue posted that yesterday. He misses those 3 kicks. The door's open, right? Door's open, right? Gotta be honest about that. All right, so that's it for the practice. So just kind of wrap up thoughts, right? The main thing today is Isaiah Likely, right? Is he okay? Is it just, a high ankle sprain? Is it just going to be, 2 to 4 weeks or whatever? The only good news about that is, if that is the case, is that, Isaiah Likely will still be on target to be, back for the Ravens by the time the season starts, right? That's the really only positive if it is what John Harbaugh thinks it is, right? Like I said, we'll know more tomorrow. Then as far as his extension goes, Isaiah Likely is a player that all Ravens fans want to keep, right? He's a popular player. He's a really, really good player. He's looked at as the next successor to Mark Andrews, right? Because this will probably be Mark Andrews' maybe final year on the Ravens, right? Isaiah Likely is that guy next to him to take over the mantle, right? So, hopefully it's just a regular, high ankle sprain. He's out a couple weeks, and then we see Isaiah Likely back on the practice field. But, when John Harbaugh updates us, I'll let you guys know as well. But that's it for me. And Ravens training camp day 6 is Gabriel from Fan TV. I'm out.